Ladies and gentlemen, so excited for a very special live stream. My name is Dave Neal. I'm a stand-up comic and I host Bachelor Nation News and the Rush Hour podcast. And this is my delightful friend, Megan Fox, journalist extraordinaire. How are you, Meg?
I'm great. How are you today, Dave?
How about our unity? We're kind of almost matching here. I've got a
I
new
know.
t-shirt.
I even have like an undershirt that's almost the same color. And
Yeah,
this is the second time that's happened to us.
I know. People won't believe us, but I was just at Old Navy and this t-shirt, it's a new one because I've got that nice crease that you get when you
And
first
that's
go
my
home.
color. That's my favorite color. You're wearing my favorite color. And I even
There
see
it
I
is.
have lights that are that color. Look.
And also, some people have wondered, will this conversation get out of control? I've got jeans on. I've got pants on. So
Oh my God, he's not even wearing his short shorts.
I know, unless we get so heated that the pants could burn off at the quad length, I think we'll be okay.
I had people who were literally sending me messages like, so I guess you and Dave are done now, huh? You're not friends anymore. And I was like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, I told that to Tasha. I was like, I kind of went hard on you the other day. I was like kidding, but also just having fun. And I think people took it as like real aggression. And I was like, no, we're good. I mean, maybe this is a good place to start. I wanna build a little empathy for our separate audiences, because I think we've both found each other in different ways. That was a very pivotal time. You are one of, if not the first journalist to really get my back and stick up for me and share my show with a lot of other live streams. And for that, I am forever grateful for you. And and then also you told me once that I don't know if you wanted this to be known because you're such a hard-shelled human here, but I think I made you emotional once. Is that correct?
Probably. When was that?
You told me
Oh,
that you cried
I did. When was
because
that? It was something you said about you went on a you said something about you believe in a friendly universe. And gosh, I really want to believe that. I do. And I do feel that sometimes I get into um a pessimistic point of view, state of mind. I am a little bit black pilled when it comes to politics. You're gonna find that out tonight. And but the idea that, you still hang on to this real positive outlook on life, it's sweet and I like it. I appreciate it. And I want to be more like Dave. I do. I want to be more like Dave.
well,
Dave
I
has
think
a lot of good, you have a lot of positivity that I think is really valuable.
thank you. I think whether you're positive, and I'm not saying you're negative, but in general, if you're positive or negative, the world will kind of give you that. And
True.
it can be like if you've ever just had a bad day. Like I've had people flicking me off left and right now that I'm like driving a Tesla in Tennessee. I guess they don't like it. And I'm just like waving back. Like, why would I give somebody my anger? I have to save that for when I really need it. I can't just be giving it to random people online. And we've both been criticized for kind of platforming the other person. You were criticized, and I don't want to go too deep into it because I do believe the people that criticized you meant well, but you were criticized for joining this movement of justice for Clayton, and I wasn't going to let that prevent us from getting to know each other because at the time I didn't know anything about you.
Yeah, it
So
was really funny. It was like, I wish a woman would cover this. Where are the women to cover this? And then I get in on it and they go, well, not her.
yeah,
Definitely not
you're
her.
the type of friend you want when you're at an Airbnb and the hot tub goes out and we need someone to call the landlord. Like you're the person that would be like,
Are you calling me a Karen? We're not even 5 minutes into this, and he's already calling me a Karen. Listen to him. I do not call the manager. All right. I may have
you
called the
know the penal
manager a time
code.
or two.
Yeah, you know your facts, which is always good to have as a friend. Um, there may be times when I get walked on because I'm just like, all right, I guess you closed half an hour early versus someone might be like, no, you're still open. I demand my right. Um,
You're right. That would be me. You're
I
like,
have
read the sign.
I have a general belief that most people, if you select 1,000 random people, I think most people are going to agree on 70 to 80% of topics. I would love to find out what those are for us. And I would like to talk about some things we disagree on. We had some fantastic conversations through voice note the other night about very simple and important topics going on out there, some of which aren't being talked about. I'll briefly tell you my politics, and then you can tell me yours. I grew up with a single mom. She was on food stamps. She understood that some social welfare really helped her get off of her, get out there. She was early 20s, and she had my sister and I 11 months apart. She left my dad when she was pregnant with me. I I value very much the help that we can give each other as a community. Uh, so I have found myself in a progressive mindset with tons of questions for the Democratic Party in ways they have failed. I probably harp more on the Democratic Party because I think that's something I can help change versus the ways I believe the Republican Party has failed. I believe they have failed on their moral values, and I believe they've all sort of aligned with a necessary evil that they don't actually believe in as far as the politicians go. I also believe the Democratic Party has completely taken away the votes of plenty of people in primaries, not necessarily through illegal acts, but things that should be illegal. Super delegates, gerrymandering, things like that. I don't think the popular vote is always the one that becomes president. And I think more people than not agree on more issues than not. And that's kind of the world I live in, which is that I think we have more to agree on, like middle class wise, and that there are forces to be that are trying to separate us. And I think those are all the people that are really making the money. So whether it's Nancy Pelosi or someone on the Republican Party, I think all this money being made needs to be audited. I think it should all be taken out of the election process. And I don't think anyone should be a career politician. So that's kind of where I'm at.
I appreciate that. There's a lot of things in there I can agree with. Also, for instance, you talked a little bit about welfare and Americans who need to use those resources. My husband grew up in a family that needed those resources, and I'm glad that those resources were there for them. They also had to rely on some private charities. Their local church would drop off food in tough times and things like that. Americans are very generous people, and I don't think there's anybody on any side who wants people to go hungry or have their basic needs not met. I think the way to do those things, there are arguments about how to get it done and for how long it should be available. And I think my biggest problem with it lately is that this country has, for some reason, we have a lot of, and Democrats are doing this, handing out these resources that are for Americans to people who are not Americans and taking those resources away from people who are coming here illegally. That's a big problem I have because I do think Americans have a lot of need and we're not meeting those needs. But as far as my political background goes, I've always been conservative. I was raised in a conservative home. My family is far more conservative than I am on a lot of issues. I lean libertarian a lot, but I can't join the Libertarian Party because they're crazy. And you go to one of their conventions and someone will be streaking. It just will. It's a thing. And so I left the Republican Party in 2020. I got very upset about how all of that was handled, from the questions about the election to not that it was not okay to question an election. It is, and we should have a better system that we can verify and that people can feel good about. And I think that's the main problem, is that nobody on either side feels that our elections are secure. In 2016, Hillary blamed Russia and said Russia hacked our elections. And then in 2020, the Republicans said Democrats stole it. And I think when you have both sides feeling that our election system is so bad, there must be a way to strengthen that, to strengthen our faith in it. I'm a person who feels, whoa, sorry, that was my Stream Deck and I hit that with my phone. I'm somebody who feels like less government is always better. Individuals are better at solving their own problems than involving a lot of bureaucratic red tape. Communities are much better at solving problems than some faceless bureaucrats in Washington, D.C. I think the federal government has gotten way too big. I prefer smaller government on all levels. Just go to the DMV, guys, and wait in line for a while and see how that works out. Every time we put government in charge of stuff, it never goes well.
Yeah, you know, a lot of housing issues for the homeless in Los Angeles. You know, the amount of money it's cost to build these things. There does need to be a change. I personally, like, my family is very. My parents are Catholic, and I was raised Catholic, and I would still go, but I kind of just don't go because I wasn't going for me, I was going for them. But I do find myself to be very spiritual, and I do try to have like a very charity focus on my platform. As far as what we try to do for single moms, and as you and I have both been able to raise money for good causes with the Clayton case. But I also would rather live in a system where we're not relying on good people, because churches do help out, but whenever anyone helps out, it comes with some sort of caveat. And I do agree that the government has been pretty shitty in the way that they dole out that help, but I also think privately there's too much wrong. That I don't Put it this way. When I was a social chair in the fraternity, we had to make sure everyone paid $250, and all of that money went to throwing a party. And that would go to the party for the whole semester, right? It'd be thousands of dollars, and then I would be in charge of what beers we need to get and what's the theme. But if I didn't get everybody to pay that $250, then people would throw $5 here or $2 here. It's like we all had to be a part of it. And when you look at the tax system, we have Elon Musk bragging about how much he paid in taxes on the number amount, but we find out that's only 5%. And you and I mean, I pay a lot of money in taxes, and I'm proud to pay
So
that.
do I.
I also am proud to write off the money for my business and everything else. But even with that, I mean, I paid more in taxes this year than I made probably 3 straight years before my channel took off. So I'm happy to pay those taxes. I, like you and everyone else, just wants to make sure it's going to the right thing. But I did want to mention, there's a few things there. Do you believe that Hillary Clinton questioning Russian involvement in the election is as bad as Trump never once conceding that he lost? Because everyone else ended up conceding, even Al Gore. They all conceded. But I do understand that after they conceded, they did question the integrity of things. But do you believe that that's the same as a president losing and saying, I do not concede the election, it wasn't fair?
Uh, I don't see much difference. I don't think he had to concede if that wasn't how he felt. I think he left without, any issues. So, as far as the January 6th thing, that's completely been overblown. So much of it has been overblown. The worst insurrection ever. I'm sorry, but if you're going to launch an insurrection, those are not my people. You brought no weapons to an insurrection, no guns at all. You can't insurrect a country through throwing a riot. That's not how it works.
I
And
agree with you.
anybody who uses the word insurrection is being so hyperbolic, it's not even worth discussing.
I think insurrection, on definition, people say, well, technically it was X, Y, and Z. But I agree with you that I don't believe there was a concerted
That was
effort
not a coup.
to do
That is
harm.
not a coup.
I
I
do
will say
believe
though,
they
like
were
people
meant to.
fucked around and found out that day, and they shouldn't have done that. Like I said it from the beginning, like that was ridiculous. Now, not the people. I'm not talking about the people who were parading through the Capitol and laughing and sitting at Nancy Pelosi's desk. Those were the least of it. That poor guy got 3 years in prison for sitting at Nancy Pelosi's desk, and I sometimes think, what country is this? That was a legitimate protest. Now, what wasn't legitimate is what turned into violence. And I don't know if we'll ever get the answers on that, because you've got one side who are saying the police were extremely brutal and were doing like police brutality to old women and old men in the crowd, and the younger men in the crowd reacted. So then you've got the police saying, no, it was this violent thing. So there's two
It's
two
kind of like
sides.
being at Charlottesville and going, yeah, like the F around and find out. It's like, look, if you're going to be somewhere when it's such a hostile. I was in a riot once when it was the Red Sox in the playoffs. Bricks were getting thrown at people. It was in the universities in New England. It became quite
Yikes.
an event. And yet there is a force that overcomes people when you are in these.
Yeah.
The only thing I would teach my son is to run in the opposite direction when a crowd seems to be getting hysterical. And we watched on January 6th as the crowd started to kind of get this group think of like, let's push through here and push. They might not even know why they were trying to push through the barriers, but
At some point, it was too many people behind them pushing forward. So you had and I've talked to people who were there. People who were towards the front got pushed over barriers by people from behind them. So you don't know who got stuck. However, and look, the hearings I thought were very partisan. I didn't think we got many answers from that. But anyway, it doesn't matter. That was a thing that shouldn't have happened. Riots are never a good thing. Losing your temper like that is not a good thing. But I don't think it was a legitimate attempt to overturn the government. And it couldn't happen in this country.
And by the way, I want to let our audience know I am pledging today to only read super chats. That is just my mental health way of saying I'm not gonna. I don't want to. I just want to deal with it. You and I have enough to talk about, but you can read whichever. But I do have 2 super chats I will read because they are compliments to Meg Fox. Wendy says I'm loving Megan's hair.
Oh,
And
thank you. It's terrible. I had it up in a ponytail all day. I just took it down all quick.
it's very
Ugh.
you are not cowardly, but your hair is very cowardly lion, which by the way is a compliment. That's good hair. Debbie said, "Love you both. Make America friends again." I refuse to use that saying, but but if people want to pay me and say it, fine.
I
So
think it's a good saying because it means we need to overcome all this stuff and we need to remember that we're neighbors.
yeah,
And I think Trump's so good at marketing that his marketing really works and takes off. So I don't see any problem with it. I actually have a pint glass with that. I don't have it on my desk,
he keeps
but I
it
have a
simple. It's a simple slogan, and you
it's a
need simple
simple slogan, and I think it's a good message, which is we can have these discussions and we can disagree on stuff and still want to have a beer together, still invite each other to each other's parties, still
yeah.
sit down and like
Cannonball in each other's pools, as we said in Arizona. Well, I did want to
yes.
say this because I can't speak for everything that happened on January 6th, although part of what I see as the right thing is people effed around and found out. I do think everyone's sentencing should be looked at. And I'm not saying pardoned, but like I think it should all be toned down so we can move forward as a country. I do think that there is a job that police have done on both sides, whether it's at left-leaning rallies or right-leaning, where they instigate. It has happened where there's been plainclothes police officers throwing a brick through a window so that they can
Mhm.
arrest people. We've seen this happen with civil rights. We've seen this happen so many
Yes.
times. My only solution is like body cam footage and
Dave, the FBI will not tell us how many operatives they had in the January 6th crowd. They still refuse to answer the question.
yeah.
And
Well,
at the same time, we know they were embedded with some militia groups, and they were embedded at such a rate. There were more FBI than the militia members. So you have to ask yourself, like, how much of this is our government working to turn each other against one another? And that concerns me because, look, police brutality is an issue. The FBI using people as informants and like ginning up stuff, it happens. There was a guy in Chicago who allegedly planted a bomb. This was years ago for an alleged terror plot. And the FBI got up on the dais and they made this big thing about how they intercepted the plot. Well, it turns out they set up the plot.
yeah, we've
There's this
seen this.
poor guy who is like mentally disabled. They literally put a bomb in his hands and had him. It was a fake bomb, but still, like they groomed him online, and then they put
Entrapment.
a bomb in his hand, and then they told him to do it. This cannot be allowed. We have to stop this entrapment of people.
We
It's
agree.
wrong.
Look at that. We agree. And I think most people agree
We
when you hear
agree.
about like you hear this all the time when when there'll be some scenario where it's like, yeah, the police force or whoever the FBI gets to say, we took another terrorist off the streets, and then you find out that it is someone who was radicalized by that department. And
By the
look,
department that
we're trying to
wants the
see it.
win.
I'm not defending the catch their predator. Like they do that, to like they do that for good when they go into chat rooms and find a creep, and then they catch
Right.
that creep, and they. But this is different because I agree with you. I've seen documentaries and watched where people have been radicalized that might not have been, but
Totally.
because there
What
are
about
instances.
what about the Whitmer kidnapping plot? Those guys were found not guilty because the FBI were transporting them across state lines with weapons in order to increase their the charges they could bring against them. Again, they found some, guys who are not real smart and radicalized them. And they had the FBI coming up with the plan to kidnap the governor. And then they're egging these guys on. And a jury found them not guilty because the FBI did what the FBI did.
I'm going to
So
look into this because I'm taking your word for it. But how much did Gretchen Whitmer know about this? Because she's going to be a huge, like, this story won't be going away. She'll be
how
huge.
much did she know? Well, I mean, she knew about the threat. I don't know how much she knew about the, I'm sure she followed the trials. But there were
I only ask
two.
because she's somebody who is a big name. I don't think she'll be VP, but she's going to be a big name moving forward in a big swing state. And while some people say, "Oh, we don't like her," the overwhelming people that I've spoken to in the polls show that she's very favorable there. But yeah, I mean, if there was this kidnapping plot, if it was set up by the FBI, then it's just like, yeah, that's only going to sow more division.
Yeah, the chat is reminding me there were one or two guys who were found guilty, but the others were not. There were at least two trials that I watched where they were found not guilty, and it was because of the FBI, the FBI involvement. You can't get around it. I mean, it's that needs to stop. That's one of the things that I think everybody in America agrees on. Our law enforcement agencies should not be entrapping regular Americans to do their dirty work in order to either foment political discord or to make their records look better. Whatever their reason is, they should not be doing this. It is wrong and extremely harmful. I covered a story, Cynthia Absug, she was smeared in the press as QAnon mom. That's what they called her. Now, I knew Cynthia very well. She had no idea what QAnon was. She was a registered Democrat. She wasn't a Trump fan. She wasn't political in any way. But when the media gets a hold of you and they do these things that they do and they smear you, this was a woman who actually was set up by a group of people that I believe may have been, informants for the government, may have been. It's a long story, but I watched it happen and play out in real time. And there will be a documentary about it soon. And you'll see yet another example of an innocent woman who was smeared and set up by these shadowy people and it happened in 2020. It was the election year, and that's why it happened. They wanted those headlines. They wanted QAnon mom to link this dangerous Q thing of kidnappers to Donald Trump, and it happens both ways. I'm sure this was just a really contested election year, and so you just have to be careful what you believe in the media and what you see, because a lot of it is made up.
I'll say this, because I think when we talk about the distrust of media, I mean, I don't think we need any extra foot on the scale of pulling people in different directions. The media has learned left-leaning media can talk to their audience one way and right-leaning can talk to their audience. They don't need each other niche-wise. With examples like Joe Rogan taking ivermectin, I mean, I've been of the place, like, it was never as bad as people thought. My wife had that for Lyme disease.
Yeah,
And
it's one of
while
the
yes,
oldest
could be used as a
drugs
horse dewormer, it is used all over the world for malaria or whatever other
for
things.
40 years.
And
And it's won several prizes, I believe, like awards.
But I don't believe it was effective for COVID, but it doesn't matter because I don't think it was harmful.
No,
And
it's not going to hurt you.
they clearly took Rogan's face and made it green, and I mean, it was so disingenuous.
So bad.
And it's too bad because then people like Rogan, I think, run in this like way too worried about culture war issues. I think it like hardened him in the wrong direction. What I try to vow is that I'm not budging on my progressive policies, and yet I feel the need to be able to call these things out. The Covington Catholic kid, Covington is over for
that was so bad.
Now, obviously, when I saw you the other day, I roasted your stupid hat. But there it is. Yeah. Ugh. Super chat her to take it off. The hat.
You mean this stupid hat? What happens if I put it on? What happens?
I think what happens is I can just do that. Can I? I got the controls, but I see this kid, and I got a brother who's 18 years younger than me, and I nearly brought to tears by seeing a kid who looks like an asshole to the people that want to look at him that way. But I see this 16, 17-year-old as like being stupid with his friends. So that whole instance, I go, I need to apply that level of empathy to Black kids. I need to apply it to immigrant children, people that are in tough positions that don't look like me. And the one thing I'll say about the progressive movement that has struck the most, which has become the most relatable to me, is the idea is, and there might be a lot that's wrong with it, but the floor of where we are as a country, the richest country in the world, has to be raised up. And that might mean a $25 minimum wage. That might mean Medicare
Holy
for all.
crap. Nobody's going to be able to pay that, Dave.
But hold on a second.
McDonald's is already firing people. What are you talking about?
I'm going to get to that. And a $25 minimum wage is not a crazy amount of money in today's world.
Well, that's because of inflation. We need to bring that down, and then minimum wage will be okay again.
We'll talk about that in a second. Inflation is back to its percentage it needs to be at, between 2 and 3%. But I do want to talk about that. But the point of what I'm trying to say is, we as a country can afford all of these things. We have all of the resources in the world. We have the world's technology. We have incredible resources of like natural resources, natural gas, electric. We have so much, and yet we are a capitalistic society that is failing because it got too good. The CEOs, the shareholders, they make too much money. So companies failing. McDonald's. I used to actually work in advertising for the company that advertised for McDonald's. They spend millions on advertising. They spend millions on all these things. They're the shareholder, the CEO, the franchise owners, they make a lot of money. I like to use Walmart as an example. That family is worth so much money. Kroger is making billions of dollars in profit. If they can't afford to pay their employees a amount of money that can provide for a whole family, raise the cost of goods. Then we won't shop there. Do whatever, let capitalism try to exist on a fair playing field. And that might bring back mom and pop companies. That might bring back more people going to the local fruit stand and all of these other systems that have been trampled by corporate greed and billion-dollar owned companies.
I hear what you're saying. I just wonder in reality how that ends up working, because if you raise the prices of the things at Walmart, which people are already struggling to pay, and there are people who are struggling seriously because every single time they go to the grocery store, it's $100 a bag, and they don't have it. So if those prices go up anymore, it's just punishing, people who do not have the money. I don't
that idea, but also Walmart.
I don't see how that helps.
They're already making billions in profits. My guess is they will cut into their own profits before they rate. I mean, yes, you're right. We can talk about inflation, but in order to talk about inflation, you have to talk about corporate greed. These corporations rode the inflation dick during the pandemic. Sure, maybe their transportation costs went up a little bit, but every single one of these corporate, Kroger, there's like 4 main grocery companies, right? The Walton family, they're all making billions in profit, not revenue, profit. So they don't care. They've realized we can jack up these different prices. Walmart might say, all the other stores around us went out of business. We're the only option for these families living around here. They don't even pay their employees enough money. Most social welfare programs go to people that work at places like Walmart. They need, if we can't as a society come to a place morally where we look in the mirror and say, someone who works at Walmart 40 hours a week deserves to make their living there, then we're not having good conversations. Because so if it does jack up the price, and again, I'm not saying overnight you switch it to $25 an hour. I'm just saying, where did we go in a society? And I've seen this in freelancer gigs because I've worked for Uber. I've worked in unions. I've seen the difference between having a company and having like the negotiating power versus just barely getting by to continue to be an indentured servant.
I would prefer to see people rising above jobs. I would prefer to see people at Walmart not making their entire career out of a minimum wage job. I would prefer to see them working their way up the ladder. And I don't think minimum wage was ever meant to be a living like you're supposed to stay on it forever. You start at minimum wage and then you become a manager and then you become a store supervisor. And then the next thing you know, you are the whole area supervisor and you're overseeing 4 Walmarts. I think that
How
it's
does
a
everybody get?
strange thing.
How does everybody get to those jobs? Because
Well,
I know people that
generally,
have
it's
worked.
young people starting their first job who are working minimum wage. If you're 40 and you're still working a minimum wage job, I say you haven't tried very hard because there are more things that you should have been working on a career. Now, do we need more job training and instead of sending kids to college, which it's for a lot of kids is totally pointless, should we be pushing them towards trade schools so that they can have actual careers? Yeah, absolutely. By the way, HVAC, I know a guy who started out in HVAC, made his own business. He was making over 400,000 a year in his first 2 years. That's insane. But that's what you're talking about when you're talking about trades versus, liberal arts degrees, which give you absolutely nothing. And we're paying hundreds of thousands of dollars to these universities to teach our kids basically Marxism. Then they get out and they can't get a job. So you look,
Well,
trade schools
unemployment
is where
hasn't.
it's at. And I don't think you should ever be a full grown adult living on minimum wage because you should have built more skills by then. And that's part of my individualism where it's like, you need to have some personal responsibility about moving up in the world, about getting better at your skill and finding something you can do and then advancing. Nobody
What's
is looking at a minimum wage job, Dave, as the thing I want to do for my career.
Well, how come it used to be a lot more when it was $7, but that $7 felt like 20 in today's? Like, I don't know if
Because
people that
prices are so out of
no,
control.
no,
We
no, but
allow
before even 4 years ago, like, right, so what's let me ask you this, what's your federal minimum wage that you would like? Where
Well, I don't know.
because if
I'm not
you
an
if you're
economist,
well, but I
but
no,
I
I'm just asking because if you're of the mindset that everyone should, propel themselves, you should probably be for no minimum wage. If you wanna be, like, true.
I think minimum wage is a good idea. It keeps companies from abusing their workers, and I think there's a balance. You have to strike a balance. I believe that unions can be good, and I think that protecting workers is a good thing. And but I don't think that the average person in America should set their sights on a minimum wage job, and that's it. That's
Yeah,
not
but
where you're supposed to end up.
sometimes that's the job you take while other things pan out.
Yeah, while other things sure, and I've done it. I've worked 2 jobs, 3 jobs.
I did it 4 years ago. Like, I was doing minimum
Yeah,
wage job in Los
I was
Angeles.
waiting tables last summer, so, that's a less than minimum wage job for tips,
Oh,
and
Megan Fox as a waitress. I love it.
yeah, I mean, I do. I love waiting tables. It's a great job, and I'll tell you what, Donald Trump has come out with his new tax plan. It's no tax on tips, and that's gonna mean a lot to people who work for tips.
Do
It's
you
gonna mean
feel like there should be, what do you think about overtime pay at a certain amount of hours? Are you
I
for
have no problem with overtime. I have no problem with like I said, I have no problem keeping workers, being treated correctly and right. I just don't think that we should be encouraging people that to go for a minimum wage job.
I
I
think it's
think,
a false
yes, you start
comparison, though.
there.
Can't you do both? Can't you say, "Here's the bottom of what you" Okay, I totally understand. I'm someone who's runs my own business just like you do, and I wasn't able to really thrive with my business until I was able to get past a few I had to work my ass off, in order to get past the minimum wage lifestyle. Like, I was in the deep end for so long, so broke for so long, just trying to, like, survive. So, I don't think most people work the minimum wage job because that's what they want to do the rest of their life. But I am heartbroken when I see that baby formulas behind behind the security thing. That should be the stuff that, like, if anyone's stealing baby formula and selling it on the black market, I think that should all be as free as anything else that's a
Well,
necessity.
it is. You can get WIC, and it is free if you need it,
If
and
it
you can
truly
get
was
it.
free, there would be no market for it, and it wouldn't be something people steal, right? Like, but my point being is
Well, I
that
don't know why I think it's only behind the thing because they put certain priced items. behind. I don't think it's because it's items that people steal. I think it's out over a certain price now
It got
because we have such a
it got
problem with theft, and we have certain politicians who say we won't prosecute that theft, and it's
I
no
think we
longer a
should
crime.
I agree that that's a whole separate issue, and this is where it becomes a little difficult because I do wanna, and again, I don't wanna, like, I'm not, like, prosecuting you here, but I do think that where we differ is that I do believe there should be a minimum that somebody can work. And if someone's like working at McDonald's because they're a teenager and it's their first job, I don't think they should make less money. I think that minimum should be maybe it's different in different states, but in a $20 to $25 amount. I think that's where it's at, because
$25 an hour is something you work up to. That's a lot of money,
it's not that
Dave.
much money.
It is though. It's not flipping burgers, it's not punching keys, it's $25 an hour job should mean something. I'm sorry, but
But then you get
I
into
don't
a
I think
conversation
that
of
that
what someone.
destroys motivation. You are destroying motivation when you do that. I think you destroy someone's, desire to work for something.
Well, I
You
certainly
don't
think it's
start
above
at $25 an
I
hour,
think
you
it's
just
certainly above $15. I think that whole conversation has sailed of like what it takes to survive in the world we live in. So
well,
inflation's
but it
got
shouldn't be a minimum wage job is not about surviving. Those are jobs for teenagers and retirees who need extra money. Those are
that's
not
what
jobs
you're saying.
for
That's not
adults. And
historically it is.
you don't even have to have an education to get a job paying more than minimum wage. You just have to work your way up. That's all you have to do. I mean, I'm not there are jobs everywhere right now, Dave. There are for hire signs everywhere. What we are seeing in our market is that people don't want the jobs. They would rather not work. And we make it possible for people to not work. Some people live off, the government forever because they don't have motivation to do it. Now, the people who need it and the people who are disabled, all of those people should get what they need. But I don't think we should be incentivizing people to not try to continue getting more and more and better at their job and getting promotions the way they should. Or how about this, Dave? How about we make it easier for people to start their own businesses, which is where you really make money? How about we stop making it so difficult for people to start businesses through all this licensing garbage and
Yeah,
the red
I
tape.
agree. I agree. It gets very expensive and a lot of it's like greasing pockets. And I know I totally agree. I just want to say this. I as far as minimum wage is concerned here, I just I think enough, like, take for instance my family. They have a heating and air conditioning company. It's been my family's company for my dad's company for 40 years. HVAC. They complain about, oh, people don't want to work. I say, it's all economics. They need to be paid more money. So I know people that do stand-up comedy that haven't filed their taxes in 15 years. They're so broke. They're like, what's the point? They're so broke. There are so many people that are so broke. They're like, why would I get out of bed for minimum wage work when I'm so far in debt? Do you know what I mean? Like, the system has not worked so hard. I believe if someone's on unemployment, say they're getting $250 a week, they have no incentive to start working again because they're not going to make enough to offset that. I think a society would be better if you are on government assistance, that money gets added in addition to whatever you can make, because these aren't
No,
people that
I
are
agree with.
blowing their
That I
money.
agree with because I've seen it myself. I've seen it myself where somebody who was on assistance got a job and was all excited that she got a job. And then she was told she was losing her assistance. And she was like, "But wait a minute, the salary that I'm making isn't as much as what the assistance was. And so I can't feed my kids if you take away my assistance while I'm working this job." That's not okay either. That's insane. That incentivizes people to stop working, go back on the assistance and stay there, because why would you try if you're going to get punished if you get a job? So there's stuff like that we can absolutely agree
All right.
on.
We got
That's
that.
a
That's on my
insane
list.
stupidity that should never happen.
I got it on my list. I know we don't. I know you don't want to talk about this too much, or we don't have to talk about this too much. But the biggest loss that I'm seeing for the Republican Party is overturning Roe v. Wade. Every single election where women's rights has been on the line, the Republican Party has lost since Roe v. Wade has been overturned. What are your thoughts on that?
I think the Republicans got exactly what they wanted. And then instead of stopping there, and being grateful that they got what they wanted, which was for the decision to go back to the states. I have been told my whole life that's all we wanted was for the states to be able to make their own decisions so that the people were truly represented. Because we all felt, those of us who were pro-life, we felt we didn't have a voice ever, that we weren't allowed to say where our tax dollars go, that they were going to fund abortions. And if it were to go back to the states, then we would be able to vote and it matter. Of course, with a federal ruling, our voices didn't matter. So when it was turned over to the states, I thought it was a fantastic win for everyone, because then the people in New York could codify their abortion rights how they wanted it, but the people of Oklahoma could do similarly and put restrictions on abortion, and we could all kind of separately live happily ever after. But that isn't what happened. Immediately, Republicans started pushing for national abortion bans, and I was like, stop. I was like holding my head, like, are you kidding me? You just got everything you wanted. You should work in your states to get these restriction bills that you want and leave everybody else alone, because that's the surest way that this will all turn around and go back to a federal law again. And people are so divided on this issue that there's no talking anybody into it anymore. I'm not going to try and talk you into being pro-life. You're not going to be able to talk me into being pro-abortion. It's just not going to
So would you
happen.
call yourself pro-life?
I would call myself pro-life, and I wish we lived in a culture that valued life more. As a mother who's had 3 children of my own, I have a very hard time with abortion. Having felt them, inside kicking and rolling around, and I have a very hard time with that. I
Well,
find
most
it to
abortions
be.
happen early on. Like most
And
abortions
that's
are
where
not.
we should stay. We should
So,
stay in it. We should have
but
come
doesn't
to
that
a
make you pro-choice?
compromise. We should compromise. And there are people who are to the right of me who say there is no compromise with murder. And while I understand them, they need to understand that they are living with another half of America who does not see it that way. And there isn't a way we're going to come together on this. So we need to compromise. This is one of those things that you have to have a compromise on. And that's what politics is about, by the way. It's about compromise. It's about working together to find the least offensive thing that we can agree on. And I think that least it's like there's like a stat out there. It's like 90% of people agree that abortion after the first trimester should be off the table. I think we can all agree to that. We have 1 trimester to figure it out, and then after that, you're having a baby.
My only
Can
add-on to that would be that I don't disagree with you, but I think I would like to look at more research about somewhere between the first and second trimester, just because the first trimester, sure, that's most abortions happen before then. What we discussed,
or during it,
which I
the
think is
first
a good
trimester.
idea, is the general idea isn't and and by the way, and I do want to hear your take on Trump saying that people on the left are having post-birth abortions, which would be considered murder, which is not legal, right? So the issue that I have is the disingenuous portrayal of what pro-choice people want, because it sounds to me like you are in part very pro-choice. It sounds like to me nobody's advocating for abortions. They're just advocating for, if there's a rare time when they need to happen, having the resources to kind of take care of that. A lot of abortions that happen late term are with babies that are either non-viable, they're already dead, and they need to be removed from the body. There's a trust that people have with their doctor to make the right decision. So a lot of pro-choice people just say that should be something that the doctor is allowed to decide. And now we live in states where doctors don't even want to touch the issue because they might get sued into oblivion or even get arrested if they decide to surgically remove a non-viable fetus. So you agree that it's a losing issue with respect to how far the Republicans have pushed it?
I do. I think that the radical side, and I don't and let me explain. I don't think it's radical to want no abortions. I think it's a good thing to want no abortions. I think it's good for people to want other options for women who find themselves in crisis pregnancies. Um, I think it's good to want more life versus less life. Okay. But I also understand that there's an impasse here, that we are not crossing. And I'm just willing to say I would be much happier with restrictions, with us stopping this second and third trimester stuff. And New York, you were talking about New York's law. New York has no restrictions. You can have an abortion all the way up to 40 weeks in New York. And that was, as far as what you were talking about, the post-abortion thing, what he was talking about there was a literal argument going on in New York about should a doctor be able to make a decision after the baby is born to abort the baby if there was some, what's the word? Problem that they didn't know about, right? So, and they were really discussing this. I don't know how it ended up, but this was really being discussed, and that is called infanticide. That is murder. But we have people on the far pro-abortion side of this who really do believe that you can abort a baby few minutes after birth. So it's not that, and
And that's
so
the
both.
problem, right? Is that it's their belief that you can do that. So when you look at the RNC, that is the festival where you talk about all of your accomplishments. And not once did they mention overturning Roe v. Wade, because they've learned that they outpunted their coverage, and it's a bad move. I totally forgot to do this.
I don't know if they didn't mention it because of that, or because it's an agreed upon issue at the RNC. Republicans are all pro-life for the most part. There are some who are, less so.
Wouldn't they take as I see this? I just disagree. I think
You
they
think that they were taking a victory lap on it? I don't know. I feel like maybe it's because the issue there is infighting. Okay, there is a war going on inside the Republican Party about it, with people like me who are saying, stop pushing for no abortion completely. I mean, it would be great if we could get there, but we're not going to get there. Don't you see?
I agree. I'll admit to this. Like, I think the country is at least a 12-sided coin. Like, it's like, have you ever played like one of those board games where there's the whole alphabet on the coin, on the roll, and you roll it? That's
Yeah.
how for us to all be on left versus right is ridiculous, because
It is
I'm
ridiculous.
a comedian who believes in free speech, and I believe that we've overdone how much we shame others and don't give people room to grow and all of that, which is like every culture issue we have. And yet I get blasted more from people on the left than the right, but it doesn't change my progressive thoughts. I did want to share this for both of us, if you want to pull up your
Oh
subscriber count.
yeah.
The more
Hold
we
on.
talk
What did I
about
do
these
with it?
issues, the more we have, or at least the more I talk about these issues.
Oh my God, I already lost subscribers.
So the more I talk about these issues, the more I pay a price of losing subscribers, which is not the biggest deal. I'm happy
Oh
to
my
let people
God.
go.
I
But I wanted
lost.
to challenge people in your community and my community. Go give Megan a subscribe if you haven't already. It is the one thing that's going to keep us doing this
I just
show.
lost like 11 of you
All right, so
in
Megan's
this
at
conversation.
45,000. We got to
Exactly. I was at like 45,039, and over the last 2 days it's dropped down. But I think this is a YouTube thing.
It could be. But I would like to see 100 of you that are on my channel. If you haven't already, subscribe to Megan. Prove to people that we can have these conversations. My channel's at 82,569. I was at 83. I've already lost probably 50 or 60 subscribers since talking about this a few days ago. Again, I'm not going to lose my mind over them, but I'm challenging both of our audiences to come together. I'm going to write down where you were at and where I was at. And if we could just
Look, I got one back. I just got my one.
give us a reason to have a good faith conversation. I think I was at 568, right? I just got a couple.
Yeah, here's the thing, and this is absolutely correct. Everybody should be subscribing to Dave. Dave's one of the first people on the left who has been willing to have a conversation with me about this. No
Well,
one on the left wants to talk to me, and they think I'm going to be like a fire-breathing dragon or something about it, and I'm really not. And I'm interested in what other people have to say and what you think. I'm almost 50 years old. I'm 48 years old. Over the years, I've calmed down quite a bit, and I will absolutely hear you. I have my own opinions. You guys have your own opinions, and we can all agree to respect one another and have those opinions and talk to each other. Maybe we'll come to an agreement on something.
I
Dave, you should be getting all kinds of new subscribers. And I hope from my listeners, even my conservative listeners who get annoyed with you for whatever it is, taxes or whatever, because Dave, you're so funny and you bring me so much happiness in your daily videos and your podcasts. I love clicking on your videos. I
Thank
absolutely
you.
I love them. No matter what you're talking about, you always make me smile. That's the kind of thing we need. We need to appreciate one another for the strengths that we have.
I appreciate that. Well, so far I've gained a couple extras than you. So everyone, don't let Megan's audience be the winners here as their charity goes to me. I'm not kidding when I say this. Vote with your subscriber button, because I personally would like to do this every week up until the election, if you would. I mean, I don't want,
I would, but you know what would be really sad is if our subscriber count dropped off so much that the audience is saying, we don't want to hear this. And then that would force us to stop talking about it. And that means that the only voices you're going to hear out there are the people who are screaming at one another and who hate one another and who are, just posting nasty things about each other and their in each other's beliefs. It's just not something I'm going to do. It just isn't. And I think I think we all need to calm down a bit
Yeah, of
and
course.
maybe hear both sides.
I'm a big fan of yours. And I'm glad, I was so confident we would prove people wrong. So I had people say, do we need moderators? Should we get host? Should we
I
host
had a bunch of those too. They're like, you need a moderator. I'm like, it's Dave.
You need a moderator when there's 4 people. 3 people
I don't
even.
need a moderator with Dave.
Hopefully we're giving each other enough respect here. One of the things you tweeted, which I love your Twitter, because not many people get me to respond to things, but I my eyes roll like, and I just respond to things. But you had mentioned that you're voting MAGA or Republican in part. And by the way, I never want to say us versus them. I never call myself a we when I talk about Democrats. I have progressive values, and I don't feel like I want to ever be a part of any community. Only a community that aligns with me on that issue. So if there's ever a time when the Republicans have an issue that makes sense, I want to be able to champion that and say the party I belong to is the United States of America. And that's what we need to remember, is like, we can get so lost in this like us versus them that we lose sight of the goal. I want to ask you about immigration, because I think I think it's a general consensus that Trump blocked a bipartisan immigration deal because he needed to run on fear. And one of my biggest problems with him is not that he's bombastic or crude or that he says he does this behind closed doors with that. It's that anybody who runs on fear is not getting my vote. They're coming over the border.
What's the deal? Well, but they are coming over the border, Dave. You can watch the live cam.
But there was a bipartisan immigration bill that was written by conservative members of Congress that had everybody's support, and then all of a sudden phone calls are made and then nobody's supporting it. And if this bill passed, and again,
but I'm going to I need more information. Like, why wasn't it supported?
Well, but it's always the same reasons. Well, it wasn't the perfect this, it didn't have that. And I understand.
I will agree with you that Republicans in Congress are absolutely useless. Okay. And I'm sure they did write a shit bill that didn't address the problems. I mean, I don't know. Here's the thing. Have you read any of the 1,100 page bills that they want to get passed? I mean, we always get like the bullet points, but have you ever tried to actually read one of these 1,100 page bills? It's not about immigration. It'll have like shit in there for the, it'll be like some guy in Indiana gets a bridge built.
I'm going to look at this. Yeah. I'm going to look at this more so I can be more educated and really.
Yeah. What was it called? Well, I'd like to know too. I'd like to know what it was. Cause
well, I'll bring that to you.
I bet we will find cocaine monkeys in there. That's what I'm telling you.
It seemed as though it was a bill that was already agreed upon by both sides, and then it was killed. I mean, wouldn't it make sense that Trump couldn't have any progress? We saw this happen, I think, starting with Obama. I think Obama broke a lot of people's brains, where other sides would now stalemate. Like, if you're a politician, you're rich, they make good money, they make it all from lobbyist groups and big pharma, right? They have all this money. They can sink the country for 3.5 years just to prove a point so that their guy can get in. So when I'm critical of Trump, I'm not a what do you call it? What do you call us people? Trump
Trump
derangement syndrome.
derangement syndrome,
It does
TDS.
exist. It does exist.
Yeah, it
But I'm
does.
not that. I'm a guy who sees Trump spent
Yeah, but you
twice
might
as
have
much.
hat derangement syndrome, though.
Where? You
You
mean with
really
Trump?
hate the hat. I kinda wanna talk about how you
Well, but
feel
I
about this,
hate I
why this hat makes you feel bad things
well, because
inside.
I feel as though it's worn I believe it's done more antagonizing, and someone might have worn a white sheet that used to be their little
Oh, you cannot compare the 2.
I'm not
Dave, that's so,
let me finish.
disingenuous. You
Let
can't
me finish.
compare the white sheet to the hat.
Comparisons are not always perfect analogies. So I'm not saying it's as bad. What I'm saying is the swastika was a symbol of peace in the Hindu culture and all this stuff, right? It is no longer that. That does not mean, now listen carefully, because don't twist it. That does not mean I'm saying the MAGA party are all Nazis. I'm not saying that. I'm saying in the symbols of the swastika, it no longer stands for what it stood for. I'm also saying that red hat has antagonized a lot of groups and caused a lot of hatred. And that's why I look at it and
The
I go,
hat has or the media has?
the people that wear that hat publicly, they know that it's going to instigate. I don't.
Do
I
they
said this
though?
before. I don't. I'm not going to wear a Red Sox hat in Yankee Stadium and start flicking people off. I just see it as.
But
I
that
just
is
see it
not
as a
that
sign
hat
of
does not
hatred.
say "fuck you." That hat says "Make America Great Again," which Ronald Reagan, that was his slogan. That was his slogan. Ronald Reagan was "Make America Great Again" in 1984, I think. That's just a slogan.
Well,
And
but if you think that that
but
means I'm
you
triggered
how
by
do
it,
you think it got to a point where people
I'm
how do
clearly
you
explaining to you why I look at that and I go, "Oh, you want a you too?" Because I see that as like people go to rallies and it becomes this like us versus them thing. I understand you think it's a campaign slogan. I don't put bumper stickers on my car either. You know what I mean? So like I'm not the only person in my I can't even say what I was going to say. I don't because it'll identify to where I live. But of course it's like I see so much of that being used to overshadow other people with the big signs. I mean, I see these lifted pickup trucks blaring music with MAGA signs. That's all I see. You don't see that, and people go, "Oh, no one must be voting on the left." No, it's because a lot of people on the left don't feel the need to do that. They don't feel the need to be like, hooting and hollering because it's like I wish the American flag didn't intimidate people. I wish it was something we could all wear and know what side of the aisle we were, know that we were all fighting for the right thing. But I reject the idea that I have Trump derangement syndrome when all I want to talk about are the things I feel like he's lying to his people about. I feel like he quashed the immigration bill. I'll bring that up. I wrote it down. I feel like everything he's kind of like, I don't see any policies that he's done that he cares about. Everything in the campaign is make America great. Well, back to when? All Trump did was raise the deficit. He outspent Biden both with pandemic issues and non-pandemic issues. So when I see the Republican Party who wants to be small government, I say, show me that.
No,
Show
I
me that
agree.
small government.
They're not
Because
good
they're
at
not
that.
living up to what they say they want to be. And
No,
just
they're
the
not.
comedian in me is going, you're a hypocrite.
Yep, that's true. That part is true. But I don't think that every person who puts on a Donald Trump, MAGA hat is trying to antagonize anyone. And in fact, I think most of us really would rather not be seen as antagonists and don't want to be singled out and don't want to be hit and don't want to have beer bottles thrown at us, don't want to have eggs thrown at us, that we just want to wear the hat
Well,
because
that's why
we
I would
bought
never. That's
the
why I would
hat.
never go out in public if my parents wore that hat because I
But
knew I
I
knew
I
it.
owned
It would
Dave,
attract stuff like that.
have you ever worn a political t-shirt or anything?
No, but I did have a friend who got their nose broken wearing the MAGA hat. So I agree with you that it has brought out a lot of hate. And I'm just saying, just take the
When you
loss on the
say
hat.
some of you in the chat are saying the hat is hate, you guys don't seem the media has made this the case. It's not Donald Trump that made it the case. It's not MAGA hat wearers that made it the case. There are not bands of people wearing the red hat roaming around beating up immigrants. That's not happening. What is happening is that the media is writing horribly hyperbolic stories about people who wear the hat that are not true. I debunked 2 or 3 um, stories about guys in MAGA hats, like a Jussie Smollett story, ripping hijabs off of women's heads. Never happened. Did not happen.
Sure, and it's happened with people will put a swastika just to like, yeah, hate crime themselves. Like, yeah, we've seen these.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, so we also have the media now just this year admitting that the fine people thing was a hoax, that Donald Trump never called the Nazis at Charlottesville fine people. Because when you look at the in context, he was talking about the protesters who were there on both sides of the issue of removing the statue. So he said there were fine people on both sides of that issue, whether to remove the statue or not remove the
I
statue.
agree with you.
Then
I think the
then he
media is terrible. I think they'll put two different quotes together, and technically it's
Yeah, then he went
grammatical.
on to say about the Nazis that that those people are to be condemned totally. But for 4 years, we have heard nothing but he called Nazis fine people. And that is what led to people believing that this hat stood for hate. And it was about a thing that never happened. So it's the people who think that this is about hate, that the movement's about hate. It's not about hate. There's nothing hateful about it. You can say that, maybe we should talk about immigration, because this is a lot of it too, where people say, oh, well, you don't want people in this country, so you hate them. No, 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 not at all. I'm actually very pro immigration. I want people to come into this country if they want a better life, if they want to come here and work and pay taxes. Great, bigger tax base. I love it. I love it. I love that our neighbors below the southern border are mostly Catholic, like me. I'm very pro immigration to this country. My problem, and the problem with the Republicans and that Republicans have about the border, is that it's wide open and there's no process. It's chaos. We're not doing background checks like we should be doing. They aren't going through medical checks like they should be doing. In some cases, there are children coming across the border. During the Obama administration, it was a horrific problem. There were something like 10,000 children who were unaccompanied by adults. That's human trafficking. They were trafficked across this border by coyotes. This is a dangerous situation for children. We're not DNA testing the children coming across the border with the people they're coming across with. And we know for a fact that human trafficking is one of the largest problems in the world. And they're making, billions of dollars on the trafficking of children and women, and we're not checking that at the border. This is not happening. We are letting them come in, and then we're catch and release. They're in the communities doing God knows what with the children that came in. We don't know if they have criminal backgrounds. We don't know if they came from prisons. We don't know and then we're handing them SNAP benefits, the benefits that should have gone to people like your mom, the benefits that should go to people who are American citizens who need that help, homeless veterans, homeless people. And they're going to these people we know nothing about, who have not assimilated to this country. Immigration is a very important part of America, but so is assimilation. And we need to know like who is coming in, because we have threats of terrorism, we have threats of disease. We need to know who's coming in and for what purpose. And if they're cartel, we need to keep them out. If they're terrorists, we need to keep them out. And yes, people are sex trafficking kids across the border. It's the
So
biggest sex trafficking
I agree
operation
with
ever.
you. I agree with you with the problem. In what we'll talk about next time is I believe there was a concerted effort to squash the bill that was going to address a lot of this, involving having more judges available and less
What we need is an easier immigration system. We need
totally.
it to not be so difficult to immigrate here legally. I think I could solve this problem tomorrow, Dave. I have the solution. I could solve it. Green card, work visas. As soon as you pass a background check, so we know you're not a criminal, and you pass, a medical check, so we know you're not carrying any communicable diseases, then you get handed a work visa. And this work visa allows you to, and maybe it's good for 6 months, maybe it's good for a year, but you can come in, you can find a place to live, you can work. And then if you get arrested and you commit a crime, well, we send you right back home.
So
And in a
how if
year,
Yeah.
We figure out in a year, we look and see at your record, you know, you check in because your thing is now going to be expired. And if you let it expire, then you get deported. You come back to immigration, you say, I've been here a year. You show people your, you know, here's my pay stubs. I've been working here and there. And if you've been working, fine, we renew it for another year, maybe two. But you can't just have this backed up, you know, long line of people waiting to get in with no possible, you know, it's just they don't even know when it's going to happen, or just let people come over the border. It's
I
crazy.
don't think anyone wants there to be an open border truly. And I think we can both maybe just read a summary over the week of that immigration bill. But if it is
Yeah,
shown that there was
I
a
will. I found it on the Brookings Institute. So I will read through it.
Yeah,
I
and I'll
don't
look here
remember.
too, and we can look at and we can go, was this reasonable enough? Or I mean,
Right.
because you know how it is. We all like it to get tickled by a little conspiracy here. And I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but when I look at how broken the system is, I see a country that they don't want. Like 1 year ago,
I definitely agree with you. They don't want to fix it.
1 year
I,
ago, the
but you
only
got to
thing
look at both sides on that, Dave. Neither side is wanting to fix it.
I agree. But 1 year ago, the Republican Party, all they were hammering on is how bad people's retirement was. The stock market's never been stronger right now. I don't think that's always a great metric for the economy because I don't think a lot of people invest, but then they just forget to talk about that. So one thing you brought up was like, well, gas prices used to be less. And I kind of showed you that due to the inflation, they're actually exactly where they probably would have been. And, you know, gas
Inflation
prices
has
were
got to
low.
stop.
They were low
This
in
inflation
2020
needs
because
to stop.
well, no, they couldn't get rid of gasoline in 2020. Remember, because no one was
Well,
driving
we
anywhere.
also are not drilling anymore. They shut down all of that. Day one of Biden's presidency, no more drilling. We are sitting on top of some of the biggest oil reserves in the whole world. And the fact that we count on the Middle East for oil instead of being completely oil independent is a total mystery to
Right.
me.
I'll call it energy. Be energy independent. We both agree on that, right?
We should be totally energy, and not only should we be energy independent, we should be selling it to the world
And
and
I believe.
making America wealthy again. I am sick and tired
Oh,
of
well.
being poor.
Yeah,
I
I think that the free market is really introducing a lot of solar. I used to sell solar. It's a no-brainer over a 30-year period. It's just free. It's just raining electricity. I understand the issues that come with that, but we'll have a lot to we have like have to go. I want to talk to you about Project 2025, not today. We have no time to get into it. We want to talk about this immigration policy. I also want to talk about JD Vance. I believe this is the biggest mistake that Trump has ever made. JD Vance has the lowest approval rating of any VP going back to the 1980s. Just real quick thoughts on JD Vance. Was it why? Why did
I
he
know
do?
that my Republican friends really like JD Vance. I don't think there's anything wrong with him personally. He has a fantastic story. If you haven't watched Hillbilly Elegy, you should.
No,
You
but
should. It's really good.
just as far as electability strategy
I
goes,
think he is electable, but I don't think he wasn't my first choice.
he
But
doesn't
it's
give you that evangelical vote. He doesn't give you a diversity vote. It's just another guy that it's almost like a
well, he
there's
is
no.
married to it. He is married to an Indian woman. If
You
that
get a
makes
couple of the
any,
Indians,
if
yeah,
anybody cares,
get a couple of
uh,
Indians.
I don't know if anybody cares.
I heard
But
something funny that it was easier to replace Vance over Pence than Ramaswamy. I thought that was funny. They only
yeah,
had
he
two
needs
letters.
Vivek needs to change. He just needs to be Vivek. You know, it's easier that way.
Seriously, rebrand. Yeah.
Yeah, rebrand. Just Vivek.
No, but
Just
I
go by
only ask
one
you
name.
that because strategically, and we don't have time to get into all of it, but it was smart for Biden to choose a black female vice president candidate, assuming he thought she was qualified for the job. It was smart for Obama to choose an old white guy named Biden because
I
people
really
were
don't
afraid of
like
Obama. Like
I
it's
don't like
smart to
identity
have.
politics. I don't like identity politics, and
But that's
I
what
would never.
that might be the thing that loses it for Trump is that he chose somebody that he thought. This is my belief. My belief is he chose somebody that he thought would be a bootlicker versus choosing
Oh,
somebody
no.
like a
That's
like a
not who Vance is.
like a
No.
but like a Pence represented the evangelical wing. When you
No, but
remove that, you
that's
remove
not who
all these
Vance
people.
is. Vance was a never Trumper. I'm
But if
actually
he had
my
if he chose
criticisms
a
him. My criticisms of Vance is that he's not loyal enough. I think he's a bad pick, but Trump always picks bad people.
But he also represents Project 2025, which is something that we'll have to
Vance?
get into. I believe, and I'll have to look into
I
this,
don't
that
think so.
he wrote like the foreword to the actual.
Well, perhaps the Heritage Foundation, he may have written something for them, and that's a Heritage Foundation project. And the lies that are being spread about Project 2025 are insane. You know, we've got a think tank, a Washington think tank that does this every year. Every election year, they write a platform for both candidates, and they will present it to the Democrats and they will present it to the Republicans. And Project 2025, they presented to Biden's team as well. I don't know if people know that, but that's what they do.
I'll tell you why I don't trust things like Project 2025, because when Trump put through, 3 different Supreme Court justices, they were all grilled on whether or not they would take away Roe v. Wade. And they all said the same thing.
You do realize that you can't answer that question.
They all said that's the lay of the land, and then they all went back on it. So when I see Mitch McConnell,
that was an honest answer, though, Dave. And here's why: when you're a judge, you cannot answer without facts in front of you. How will you rule in this hypothetical situation? They're like, no,
are you
Roe v.
telling me
Wade
that Trump, that it just was by circumstance that Trump nominated those judges, and they all were more radical judges than most Republican judges?
No, what do you mean? I don't find them radical at all.
Without them, they would have never overturned Roe v. Wade. Trump promised he was going to pack the Supreme Court with his.
Well, elections have consequences, and presidents are allowed to nominate Supreme Court justices.
How do you feel about Mitch McConnell not letting Obama get a Supreme Court judge in? And then
that's all strategy.
Hold on.
It was allowed
because this is we have to have good faith here. In the same exact way, he reneged when it was Trump who was a lame duck president. So he absolutely pushed Obama from getting his Supreme Court justice.
That's politicking, Dave. That's what happens when you're
saying that because it's
run the Senate.
It doesn't matter if it's fair or not.
When you run the Senate, when you got the votes to run the Senate, you get to do that. Democrats would have done the exact same thing. They would have done the exact same thing. And anybody saying they wouldn't have is out of their minds. They absolutely would have. Now, there are arguments to be made that if they had been better at strategizing, they would have had some retirements happen sooner before Barack Obama was out. There were things they could have done. There were things they could have done and they didn't. And so you can't.
So you're telling me your stance is tough cookie, that's politics.
Yes.
Okay,
absolutely.
Let's do super chats. I disagree, but let's do super chats. I'll do one, then you do. I don't know, how many do you have?
They're all on yours. The ones with the links.
Oh, they're all okay. All right. So we got Sarah Bodie said, did you see BLM tweeted that Kamala needs to be voted on by the people, not the delegates? I did not see that. That's not going to happen. But I think we should discuss VP. We could do a whole.
We can do that at another time if people want it, if they're enjoying it.
What about Project 2025? We will discuss that next time.
By the way, when it says, have either of you read it? You guys do realize that it's like a 1,000-page book. Do you realize that it's a book? We can't read it.
Thank you for demonstrating kindness and benefits of listening to our neighbors. Yeah, of course. Megan, you did a great job. I hope I lived up to what you hoped I would be, but I think you did a great job of, listening. And I'm a lone gunman over here. Maybe that's a bad way to put it. So I have to, I'm not used to the sandbox. So sometimes I get a little hopped up. Massborn said, I'm a New England born Democrat who raised 2 kids alone, working 3 jobs. I love this difference in unity between you both. I appreciate this. I'm going to vote the devil I know over the devil I don't.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't even know what that means.
Yeah, that's just a common phrase. I mean, you vote that they're all devils, basically. And so you got to vote the one that you think is going to harm you the least. And I agree with that sentiment totally.
Sarah said Juicy Smollett got jumped in MAGA polar vortex.
Polar vortex is one of my favorite stories. The polar vortex. I'll never forget it. I was there.
Is there a conspiracy where you judge people? Is there a conspiracy that you're so hard on that you judge people if they don't agree with you? You know, if you meet someone and they believe Jussie Smollett was actually a victim.
Well, I don't know anybody who believes that. You should pick something else.
There are a few. There's a few out
Are
there.
there?
Yeah. Oh, there are. Yeah. Brooke
Oh,
says if
I've
you can't
never met
afford to
one.
pay your employees a living wage, you can't afford to run a company. That's where I stand. And maybe there could be a Megan's Law, which is like a teen get paid a little bit less law, maybe. But like, I think most jobs are not teen jobs. I think most jobs are just people that that's the job that they could walk to if they don't have a car or whatever. Which ones are yours? If they
The
have
ones with that little link on the top.
this one's you. You can read it.
So cinder blocks for tires. Thanks for the 2. Dave, what is your definition of progressive?
Okay, so as I said, it's to raise up the minimum level that we should all be living in this country, and I think that can be done by policies that really help us. And I don't think it has to be done with us all paying more in taxes. I think the rich don't pay enough
Oh,
in
I think
taxes.
paying less in taxes would help that tremendously.
When I think we could do that if if we all just agreed. Like, would you do a flat tax, and if so, what level would you want?
I would do a flat tax. I think a 10% flat tax might be the answer.
Wow.
I could be wrong, but a flat tax I think might be a good, but I'm not an economist. I like the idea of a flat tax, but I also think that federal income tax is totally wrong. I don't think we should have it at all. But you have to be careful about when you're saying punish the rich, and because the rich will always be able to survive. And what they do is they just fire employees. So, or they cut back on things that affect other people. They will always protect themselves. But when you actually let everybody get a tax cut, including the guy who runs the company, he's more willing to invest in his company. He's more willing to invest and create more
So you believe in
jobs.
trickle down economics?
I absolutely do, and I think that I've seen it happen. I know business owners in my own family, and when they have more money in their pockets, they spend more money on their employees.
I disagree. I like that's one way. That's one area where you're more optimistic in humanity than I am. Chris Jenner said $5. How are we supposed to afford trade school with a minimum wage job? How do we get out of the minimum wage job if we can't afford school? Loans are rigged. Do you believe that the student loan situation? I know these are tough to
Yeah,
answer.
I mean, these are really tough questions, but I will say this. I do think there should be way more incentives to help kids get through trade schools. As much as there are scholarships for, college, I think we don't have enough for trade schools. I would love to see more kids be able to get through trade school. And by the way, you're more able to pay off your loans if you go to a trade school, because for one, trade schools are way less expensive, and for two, you're going to be making way more money out of your school than you would out of college.
Yes,
I mean,
loans are a giant issue that I have a huge issue with.
I agree. Student loans are, it's very, but look, the university pricing, get, you want to talk about greed? Let's talk about university greed.
Yeah,
Let's talk about
totally.
the universities and their greed and how much money they are charging you for the amount that they're giving you for what you're getting out of it.
I went to a state school.
150,000 a year? Like, fuck
Imagine.
off.
Yeah. All right. This one's you.
McCrae, my 30-year-old dryer needed a new repair recently, Maytag. The repair guy I used had retired, so I called someone else. He's semi-retired and fixed it. Both said they can't find an apprentice. So done. The same thing happened to me. The washing machine guy told me the same thing. There's a lack of people to take those
Because it
jobs.
doesn't pay enough. Here's another
No,
one for you.
it can. It can't. Do you washing? Like, wait. Skilled jobs pay. I have a friend who's a locksmith. He got paid 80 grand his first year out of locksmith school. That was years ago. That was in 1990 something.
I don't know enough about that, but I'm rejecting that. It's very anecdotal. All right, this is another one for you. Sorry, we got a lot to do.
Mr. Thermeister, Newsom forced 20 an hour, places shut down.
Good.
Fairy tale.
Good. I say good. If they can't afford to pay their employees $20 an hour, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Cut back, figure it out. Work it out. I don't know what else to say.
You've never owned a store. Dave, my dad did own a store.
And my family owns a small business. I tell them all the time, guys, you can't find people to work. You got to pay them more. That's the economics.
But how do they pay them? Are they able to pay them more, or is it not? Most of the mom and pop shops I know are not able to pay that kind of money. They're just not able to. They would have to shut down. Small businesses are not making the kind of money you think they're making.
I'm not saying they are, but most businesses that we're speaking of, I don't know this one here, but I don't know if this is completely accurate, because the minimum wage requirement was going to be for businesses of a certain size. We'll have to look into it, but
We can look that up later.
stand with the fact that,
Sure.
like, these aren't I'm not saying people need to be making $80 an hour, but I think that, and it actually shows my point at how befuddled you were when I said 25. You were like, oh my gosh, what are we talking about here? Karen said FDR envisioned the minimum wage to be a living wage, not a teenager's first job. We can look more into that. Here's another one for you.
McCrae says, LOL, my first corporate job was $25 an hour, granted back in the late 90s, but still. Yeah, well,
That
corporate
would have been
jobs do
50
pay.
bucks an hour. My
Yeah.
first corporate job paid $30,000. It was so horrible. It was barely my per hour pay was
I got
like,
paid 19.
you know what I did? I actually worked for my family's moving company Friday nights after leaving my corporate job. And that was my corporate job that did the best advertising in New England. That was the best job you could get in New England. I had the best starting job in New England, and I couldn't make a living wage. Hey, it got me into this. Miss Danielle says, I'm a teacher in Austin and make $25 an hour. I can barely support myself. I will never be able to buy a house. It is not a lot of money. Miss Danielle, if you want to submit to my teacher's wish list, we donate money to teachers every fall semester. So we'd love to help you out if we can. But I agree. I just don't think $25 an hour goes. I'm lucky. I'm making an extraordinary amount of money. I'm so lucky, but I spent many a years not doing vacations, swimming in the deep end. It sucked. I don't think it helped me out as a person, but I got through it. Now I'm 39 buying my first house. This isn't the American dream people wanted, folks. I'm one of the lucky ones. There you go. That's
I started at 21 an hour, says Rogue Mama, and an hour in municipal government accounting on the West Coast. Minimum wage should be state specific. Well, yeah, that I agree with. It should, because there are different standards of living in every state.
Jasmine, $10. Boy, the minimum wage topic really struck a nerve here. There are far too many minimum wage job requirements by our consumer society to have them only filled by young people. And the minimum wage is so low, even if you move up, it takes forever to get a living wage. Yeah, I mean, imagine if every Walmart employee worked minimum wage hoping to get a managerial job. Most of them are fired. I had people work. Most of them are fired on a demerit status so that they don't have, they basically slowly find reasons for you to get fired. That way they don't have to pay your.
That's terrible. That's not good.
And that's a $1 billion family, the Walton family. Jenna, I like this respectful combo. Got to be sure food stamps goes to those who actually need it. I know someone who brags about free groceries while living for free with kids and parents who are free childcare. Yeah, okay, that's going to happen, but I don't think that should stop the right people from needing it. Here's one for you.
Squid pro quo, abortion should not be used as a form of birth control, and yes to first trimester restrictions. Yeah. Birth control is so widely available. And this other lie about Republicans who don't want birth control to be available is just, it's not true.
We'll have to look into Project 2025 because one of the things on the bullet point is.
But those people aren't the Republican Party.
Yeah,
that's just a think tank in Washington somewhere. It's the Heritage Foundation, who is a lobbyist group. They're one group.
But if that's the vice president candidate, I mean, they haven't done a good job of distancing themselves. Jasmine said also, why should a young person working and contributing to society 40 hours a week not be able to survive?
I agree that they should be able to survive. And I think one of the problems that we're having is that everything has gone up so dramatically in the last few years. And yes, because of a lot of bad COVID decisions shutting down our economy, I screamed from the rafters when it was happening. We are going to pay for this. It is going to be bad. We are going to be in dire straits for shutting down this economy, and we are still paying for it today. So that is a lot of the problem here too, is that everything went up. Julie, thanks for the 10. The love of my life gets SSI due to severe PTSD from childhood abuse. We can't get married or have the benefits of a married couple because he would lose his only form of independence. I hate this too. This is a stupid rule. They incentivize not having a family. They incentivize being single. They incentivize this, and it drives me crazy. They should incentivize strong families. That's what our government should be doing, is incentivizing you to have a strong family and not the opposite. But our government is stupid. What can I tell you?
Jenna said, I think there should be parameters around abortion to be sure not to use that as birth control over and over. A similar system to track opioid use could be a good start. Yeah, I mean, I don't know the percentage of people
repeat offenders.
I don't know the percentage of people that get multiple abortions. I'm sure you can find those statistics, but I do think that's kind of one of those, like, very much not the main issue. But okay, here's one for you.
Cinder blocks for tires, thanks to the 5. My husband was the only dollar earner in my house. He passed unexpectedly in 2023. I'm so sorry. My daughter's survivor benefits are discontinued when she turns 16. Why? Oh, this is another thing with death benefits. Our tax structure is so screwed, by the way, because death benefits are a real problem in this country. Like, you can't leave things to your children either. There's a death tax that should never be allowed. There's a lot of problems, and I'm very sorry for your loss. Mr. Thurmeister, thanks for the 2 respects for being here, Dave.
Thank you. Oh, yours are flying in. Here's another one.
Wendy Bono, wait. We as human beings really need to listen more. Why am I talking? Loving this video. I agree with that.
Wait, why am I talking? Why are we here? I'll tell you what, Meg. I had a solid intuition I was going to enjoy this chat, and you have delivered. Here's another one. Oh, this one's me, Diana. I'm thankful you both are doing this. I liked hearing both sides. And by the way, I think we have a lot to talk about. So if you're okay with it, I'd love to keep this going another week.
Oh, yeah, I would. McCrae, thanks for the 10. Tell Dave that the hat is harmless. It's only a thing because the media vilified Trump. Well, that's how I feel about it. And I would like us to be able to wear political gear, no matter what it is, whether it's a Biden hat or a Trump hat or a Trump shirt or whatever, or a Bobby Kennedy shirt, and without fear and without judgment either. It's just, who cares?
Here's our first hateful comment. You can read it.
Oh no, Squid. What's wrong, Squid? Holy fuck. Dave lost all my respect to the KKK comment. The only people that the hat is antagonized is people who hate others and don't tolerate differences. Well,
that's
all
not
right.
the point I was trying to make. I was trying to make the point that regardless of who started it, everyone knows when they put the hat on, it is divisive. That's my point. Meg might disagree with it and go, I wish it wasn't divisive, but it's like, I'm sorry. Like, I don't put sports bumper stickers on my car because I don't want anyone to, piss on my car for no reason. It doesn't mean that
divisive, though. I wouldn't say it was divisive. I would say that there is a group of people who is very unhinged about it, and they shouldn't be. There's no need to be. It's just a hat.
I respect that people should not blanketly judge others based on a piece of clothing. Mishies, but then again, this is, by the way, this is what I hate, and this is why I'm not reading the public comments right now, because I'm sure most of them are good, but it's like, we just spent an hour and a half trying to have a good, fair conversation. I tried my best to explain my point, but I guess I lost on that person. $5 as Americans, we should feel grateful that we are allowed to have these conversations. Absolutely.
That's true. That's really true. We could be thrown in a dungeon for it. Liz Wagner, thanks for the 10, says, Megan, thank you for your calm, balanced approach to these discussions. And I think Dave does a good job of that too. Thank you for that.
Oh,
cinder blocks for tires
are like crushing it right now. Oh my gosh, my people need to step up.
Cinder blocks for tires, thanks to the 5. Dave, you went from California to Tennessee. It's not cool to be a Republican in California. You now see what it's like when the opposite is true.
I reject this argument and I appreciate it, but this one really pisses me off where people go, Dave, you move from place to place. First of all, I moved to be closer to my wife's family. And yes, I did move to buy a home in a market that is of less demand to buy a home. I was able to get a foot in the door at the age of 39. I hate that I live in a country. I'm not saying I hate my country. I hate that I live in a country where I've hit the lottery. I'm a top 2 or 3% earner, and I just was able to buy my first home. I'm here fighting for the people that haven't been so lucky for me. I could just take the win and say, whatever, like I'm doing okay. But I'm not feeling persecuted in Tennessee, if that's the point they're trying to make. I understand in some parts of California, it might not be cool to be a Republican. A large percentage of California are Republicans. So I think people think of California as this one thing, and that is not what it is. Much like Nashville is extremely liberal. Here's another one for you.
Also, the tit for tat thing, I wish we could stop. I hope that Dave's experience in Tennessee is nothing but welcoming and love from the conservatives and from everybody in Tennessee. I hope that they embrace him and show him that there's no reason to fear your hat.
None of my beef here is political. There's a lot of like road rage and weird things, but I think it's more of a society issue. Like, I think they have a little too much space and the gas is a little too cheap, so the trucks are revving up.
Point me to wherever that is. McCrae, thanks for the 5. The bill would not have been proposed if Biden didn't reverse all of Trump's immigration policies. Yeah, we're going to have to look into that because I'm really not familiar with it, so I don't want to talk about it if I don't know it. Jojo, thanks for the 10. Thank you. Great talk. Can't wait for more. When you two guys run, who is the president and who is the VP?
Oh, I want VP. I want the VP.
I'm never running. I won't
VP.
run. I won't run.
Another one for you.
Liz Bird, thanks for the 5. Many subjects aren't a straight yes or no. True. Compromise and meeting in the middle. Not a one size fits all. Neither side is better than the other.
Well, I'm not here to say one side's better than the other. I'm here like saying that work needs to be done, and I think we're gridlocking it. Not we, you and I, but I think the politicians gridlock it for their own advantage.
Oh,
Kansas
yeah.
tried trickle-down economics in the whole state. It was a complete disaster. I agree that I think trickle-down is not the way, but we can talk about that more later. By the way, I'm super late, so let's just fly. Like I got like 2 minutes, so we
Okay.
got 13 to get through.
It's funny, Jasmine, thank you for the 5. It's funny that Republicans have such a negative view of the world, except when it comes to billionaires sharing money. They will share it, just give them more.
Yeah, I just don't buy it. I don't know if my family raising anyone's wages out of pure generosity. I like to think it could happen, but I just don't.
K-Matt Red Queen, thanks for the 5. More trades are offering paid internships and training, so AC and plumbing are so hard up for people. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's definitely a good trade to get into. And we could get into the whole idea where I wish people took jobs because they loved what they do. Not to say you couldn't love HVAC, but I wouldn't be caught dead doing it because I have and I didn't love it. But I have family that love it, so good for them. Robert, $2 said, I just wanted to say thanks for doing this. # goals. Thanks, Robert. I appreciate you sticking around. I'm a little nervous that I think more of Megan's people, again, prove me wrong to my audience. I think more of Megan's people are actually willing and excited for this convo than mine. I don't know. I could be wrong. We'll have to see what this.
What does that tell you, Dave?
My audience, I don't know which of ours is more diverse, but I've burned bridges across the board with my audience because my audience comes from pop culture that some of them didn't want to hear these conversations. So
I hope we don't burn any bridges because we're here to build them, not burn them. Julio, thanks for the 5. Dave, no, that's anecdotal. It's literally BLS data on trades. I don't remember what part of the conversation.
Yeah, and it's anecdotal to me unless I see the data. I'm just hearing it from someone with a super. I appreciate that. Karen says, fact check Megan. The USA produced more crude oil in 2023 than any nation at any time. Source U.S. Energy Information Administration. Oh, don't we love a good super chat fact check? We should just get all of our facts wrong so people give us super chats.
Well, please feel free to super chat fact check us. I'm going to look that up.
I do believe that it was shut down for a while, but they went from depleting all of their reserves to getting them all back. But we can look into that. And also weird things happen on election seasons. Pam 5 Canadian, thank you. This Canadian agrees this is an important conversation. I respect both of you. Thanks. All right, we got 10 more. We got to go. All
right, we're gonna get through it fast.
Right,
Don Davis, I started at $1.75 an hour. You guys don't know. I made $1.75 an hour once too.
McCray, tell Dave my Maytag repairman has 2 properties, one in the mountains. I'm sure if he had an apprentice, he would do very well. Well, let's get you on.
Thanks,
LinkedIn.
Tammy, for the super sticker. Appreciate that.
Tammy. Julie, this one's you.
Julie, close military bases in places that don't like us. Yeah. Probably a good idea. 800 quadrillion back in our own countries. Dave, look into LBJ, convincing Black women to marry government instead of baby daddy to break apart stability. That is true. That's a terrible story. And also his recordings are terrible too.
Democrats used to be in the cake. Like, I get it. We could go back.
No, but it was
I understand.
The welfare thing did not have great intentions behind it. Let's just put it that way. Tammy Morgan,
surprises.
Thanks for the super sticker.
No surprises that people were shady. Kitty
meow. High school dropout here, 6 figures at 60. IMO, that opportunity no longer exists. Trade schools are 100% a great option.
All right, there you go, Megan T.
And Megan T, thanks for the super sticker.
2 from Megan T. Chris says, but is the dress blue or gold? Megan goes first.
I could never see that thing as anything other than gold. Liz, thanks for the 5, says, Dave, research KKK. It's misconception. Your point makes sense with the correct history. It's not what it's seen as today.
Well, that's what I was trying to say. The same thing with the swastika, that it was something, it became something else. And I
understood what you said.
Yeah. Well, and again, I understand. I'm not one saying it, whatever, let's see. Our last one, Willie Billy, $10 super sticker. Thank you so much. Well, look, I got to go run to a show. I'll send you a voice note. I want to.
Good luck.
Let's pull up your subscribers. Did you get any? I overestimated what I thought people would do.
I was gaining and losing all day long. We're still at 45 6. I have six subscribers.
Oh my gosh. I honestly, yeah, this was, if I was going to say get us 100 or we don't do it again, but it looks like we are far from that. Maybe it's because we gained and lost, but hey, I'm okay recalibrating the algorithm to people who want to have a conversation.
And again, if it's not the type of thing that's for you, it's okay, because guess what? We still do our regular content, and you don't have to watch us talk about politics. A lot of people said to me today, I love you guys, but I'm noping out because I can't handle the politics right now. And that's totally legitimate, and it's totally okay. And we love you anyway. So
I estimate more people enjoy this conversation than not, but I can't hate on people that don't. Anything you want to plug before we go?
no, I nothing. MeganFox.locals.com. Make sure you're following me there. You can follow me for free. You'll get all my notifications because YouTube is asshole, and sometimes they don't give you my notifications. So follow me over there, guys.
And we will, maybe next time we could maybe give predictions once we have a VP candidate on the Democratic side.
Oh yeah, I would love to talk about that.
Do some predictions, and we can always change those because it's I think it's healthy to change your opinion on things. And we'll have a lot to get into. I have a podcast twice a day called The Rush Hour. If you're one of Megan's people and you appreciate that I'm trying to be fair here, if
you did a great job.
You're in the KKK if you don't subscribe. Meg, thank you so much for entertaining me, and I'm looking forward to our next one.
Me too.
All right, I'll talk to you later. Bye, everybody.
See ya.
Stream is over.